Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, what's good to all my humans out there? Hope y'all doing well. Shout out to my black people. Hope your mental space is doing great. We speak positivity on your life, life into your finances, your spirituality, your health, family, career, all that good stuff. We're going to try to start every podcast speaking life onto people. We want to spread that good energy. What's good? What's good? What's good? Yeah, we back. Man, feels good to pod again. Feels good. It feels good to pod again. Hope y'all been well. As you see, it's just the two of us. It's me and Andima. Isang had to step away from the podcast. You know, as you grow older in life, you realize, you know, there's a lot of stuff to balance between work, ambitions, and things like that. Isang was very passionate about this podcast, but capacity just wasn't there. So it made sense for him to step back. So we wish him well in everything that he's doing. We wish him well, especially in his music career. So make sure you guys continue to follow him. And support his music, buy, download, do all that stuff. Sending love to you, Isang, from the podcast.
And you guys may see him on the pod at some point in the future.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
We don't know what the future holds.
Yeah,
so
me and Andima, we've been working on some stuff. So some stuff should be coming soon. So yeah, you might see Isang on the podcast. But before we get started, let's talk about what everybody is wearing. As you can see, this was not planned. I feel like me and Andima's hues are kind of close.
Coordinating.
We're a little bit in sync right now.
Matching with the plants too.
If we in sync, you could be JT. I'll be one of the other ones. You can start first.
I'm not wearing my jacket.
You're not wearing your jacket. Go get your jacket. It's cool.
Sorry, y'all. My outfit is not complete.
It's not. Outfit is not complete. She has to have everything.
Now you see we were really actually very coordinated. But, you know, we keep it real with y'all. It's not always perfect the first time. So.
Yes. So what do you have on, Andima? Talk to us.
So I am wearing Pyer, which was one of my favorite streetwear labels out of New York. And then this beanie is Bricks and Wood.
Okay.
Shout out my folks from LA in the LA area.
Hey, shout out to LA.
Yes. And then these are just like platform Converses. I don't know if y'all can see. And I like them because they were fuzzy, little Sherpa action going on there.
Yeah, I've seen like some Converses recently that are like black with a little bit of platform that I actually kind of like them, but I have to figure out what I feel like they're a collab or something. I have to figure out what it is and if I can get my hands on my size.
They're the platform ones. I forget what they're called, but there's like a specific name, like the black ones that kind of come up here. Mm-hmm. I really like those.
Okay. Okay.
I want to cop a pair for sure.
Okay. So we got some Pyer NYC.
And what you got?
Let's see.
Trying to match me, trying to be like me.
So your boy got on a bucket hat from Dreams of Triumph. Boy, when he did a photo shoot with this is a Polaroid bucket, and he did like a photo shoot with like a green one in these green pants, and then I saw like a burnt orange one, and I was just like, I have to have this. So cop this joint. This is a custom hoodie from Feivorite, your favorite, YOUR.FEIVORITE. I believe we shouted her out in a previous episode.
Spell it right.
She does. I did. Trust me.
I would have fucked it up, y'all.
She does a lot of custom tie-dyeing. She also does some thrifting, reworking, and reselling. So follow her page, Feivorite Gems. We'll put that somewhere here. But yeah, and then some Jordan 1s trying to chase this cash. These are the hemp ones. I honestly bought these because I actually want to paint them. Like, I don't want to keep them brown. I'm thinking about making them blue because I didn't get the Kentucky SB Dunks when they came out. So I was like, maybe if I can get these and paint these blue over, we'll see. So these might get a transformation next time you guys see
I don't know.
them.
That sounds risky.
I mean, sometimes you got to take a little bit of risks. We'll see. We will see. But today we are talking about Fashion Week. So, Fashion Week being somewhat recent in the past couple months, we decided that we kind of wanted to dig in a little bit about Fashion Week, get a little bit historical context, talk about, the different parts. It's going to be a little bit educational today. And Dima has some information for you. I have some information for you. And we going to kind of like get you rocking real quick. So let's start. So for those of you who don't know, like if you're like just completely new, not really sure, Fashion Week is a semi-annual event. It normally happens like January, February, and I believe the other one is in like September, right? So it normally happens
around that time, yeah.
Yeah, it normally happens twice a year. In January and February, they're normally showing their autumn winter clothing for the upcoming fall, and then in the fall they're showing their spring summer for the next year. So how it was initially designed is because with the buyers, they would come to these shows to come see, okay, all right, this is what Pyer Moss is showing. This is what Fear God is showing. Okay, I like this. I want to buy this for my store. So they show so early so that they have time to make the orders and stock them in the store. So that's kind of how, that's why they kind of do the showings like that. They kind of show out of season in a sense. But let's take it back a little bit. Let's rewind. So how?
I just wanted to. Can I have a quick disclaimer, just a little segue here? So, my first language is English, and if you know anything about the fashion world, it began.
A lot of French
in France.
A lot of French words.
So there's a lot of French words, and I don't speak French. I can say je m'appelle, with a little bit of a Maryland accent.
Mercy,
but I can speak some Spanish. We could do it in Spanish, but
so basically we're just asking, give us grace on these names, please, if we're doing that. Okay. So yeah, fashion semi-annual event. Designers present the clothes the season before, so the clothes can be in store. Basically designed to help the buyers see, what they want to buy. So where did this all start? So the earliest remnants of Fashion Week can be traced back to a designer named Charles Frederick Worth. So he was the first one to actually start showing his clothes on models. So before, they were either drawings or they were either on miniatures, but he was the first one to have the idea to have like his customers come in and actually put the clothes on live models and have them model back and forth. This is back when they're doing haute couture. So these clientele are like the higher of the highest. Like this is back in around the 1850s that they're doing this. So, these are very high net worth individuals looking at clothes that they want custom made. And so they were flying into Paris in order to see these designs. So,
no, we started with money. Everything starts with money.
Yes. Nobody that looked like me or Indima was anywhere near any of that, which is we'll get to that eventually. But yes, it started in the 1850s with Charles Frederick Worth putting those live clothes on the models. And actually, I looked up, haute couture actually means high sewing, I believe. Yeah, high sewing.
Yeah, like high dress, high fashion. That's what some people call it.
Yeah, so some people call them fêtes. Some people call them like salon shows. So basically they were for the elite clientele to see the clothing. He kind of Charles kind of dictated fashion in France, like I think like 150 years before Galliano. So I know Galliano is like a big name a lot of people know in fashion. So yeah, he preceded him. He preceded Galliano, and he was the first one to put those clothes on the models. He also was the first to actually label his own garments as well. So,
and at that time, like I think a really key point is that like what he was doing was called like couture. Like it was the first couture house. He established the first couture house in Paris, France. And this is a British dude actually. And I think another piece that's important to note is also like the term haute couture didn't really exist until 1908. That's like when it was coined. So he was doing this, and there wasn't a word for it quite yet. But there also is a distinction between couture and haute couture, which we'll get a little bit into. And it makes sense when you think about the timeline why like the name haute couture came later.
Okay, so, basically it started out, France basically had a monopoly on the market as far as clothing. So, everybody would go to France to see clothes. Even Americans would go to France to see clothes. But that changed when I believe it was World War I happened. When World War I happened, people in America weren't able to actually fly to France to go see clothes anymore because of the war. It wasn't safe. So what happened is in 1903, they actually hosted the first American fashion show at Eric Brothers in New York. And so it's just kind of crazy how like opportunity happens. Like, people saw a window of something due to the fact that we weren't able to fly to France. So it's like, okay, let's actually do something here. So yeah, Eric Brothers in New York hosted the first American fashion show. The shows came with the singular themes, and they were accompanied by music. And so that kind of like, these earlier shows are very more theatrical, Nowadays, shows are kind of just like people kind of like walking back and forth. There's some music, but this was like a show. This was like entertainment. Like,
I would say, that point makes sense, but I also feel like you'll see some designers still like nod, like they give a nod to like the past where it is very theatrical. Like every element of the show is like especially the couture shows, I would say.
Yeah.
Like compared to like ready to wear, where ready to wear might be like we're just walking down the runway. Where the couture, it's like they're really thinking like the theatrics, like, Laquan Smith doing his show at the Empire State Building. Like, that's theatrical, just the location of it. So I think you see some people incorporate that in their ready to wear. But I think maybe primarily you see it more for like the haute couture shows because the amount of money like that goes into those shows is ridiculous. So that's probably why you see it a little bit more there. And because those brands, have the money too, to be able to like, to have that haute couture like standing.
Okay, so I got my timeline mixed up. Sorry. So 1903 was the first actual American fashion show, but it wasn't due to the war. So it was in 1943. It was because of World War II stoppage. There was a woman named Eleanor Lambert. She basically seized the moment and decided to cluster all fashion shows into 1 week. So this woman, Eleanor Lambert, basically, she kind of gave that early blueprint for Fashion Week, and she called it Fashion Press Week, or just Press Week in general. But she kind of put all the events in 1 week, and that was the first time we kind of seen it happen because before that, everybody was kind of just doing their shows on their own timeline, so it could kind of happen whenever in France. But now this is the first time that it was decided, okay, we're going to pick a specific week, and we're going to do all the shows in that time. So now this is the first time you get that cluster of buyers, cluster of those, high-end clients coming to the same space at one time. So yeah, and Eleanor Lambert, she's just like legendary because she also was the founder of the CFDA. For those of you who don't know, that's the Council of Fashion Designers of America, which is like the Grammys for fashion, basically. And she also helped establish the MoMA in Manhattan, which that's where the Met Gala happens. So, she's Fashion Press Week, Met, CFDA. That's a hell of a resume right there. So shout out to her. A year later, there was a woman named Ruth Finley. She actually established the first fashion calendar. So, how we spoke earlier about, autumn, winter, summer, spring. The early remnants of that was because of Ruth. So we're in the 1940s now, almost 100 years later. Then in 1945, Chambre Syndicale de la Haute Couture. I don't know.
Wait. Let me talk about that because this was like actually one of the most interesting things that I learned when we were like, oh, we want to talk about Fashion Week and couture, because I just had no. It makes sense when you think about it, but I had no idea that this much went into it. Like, people throw around the word haute couture all the time. They're like, haute couture, haute couture, haute couture, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's more significant than that. And I feel like what significant about it is that it actually is like a federation.
Yes.
Like there's a federation who established and says what is haute couture, and it is called. And let me see if I can do better than Chuck. It's gonna be really bad. Le Chambre Syndicale de la Haute Couture. I don't know if I did it. The French people, you can laugh at me. It's fine. But what is significant is that the federation has certain rules in place for you to be able to say that, you know, your house, or to show a haute couture like line. And so the first thing is that you have to have an atelier in France, like Paris, France specifically. That's like number one. So think about these smaller fashion designers who like don't have a whole lot of money. Like that's already, you got to have an atelier in Paris, France. Okay. Second, you have to have at least 15 like staff members, like who are employed like with your house or, you know, the brand, whatever the case may be. You also have to have 20 technical workers in a workshop. So I think the other main distinction of like what makes haute couture and what makes couture is that it's made by hand. Not only is it made by hand, but it's also like customized to like someone, for an individual. It's not like ready to wear where it's just like, you know, you make a sample, certain sample sizes and put them out on the runway. And then you make a couple more, you know, for folks to be able to buy. It's not like that. It's made like, you know, it'll be like one piece really. It's made for an individual. It's like one of a kind. And I think the other piece that was really interesting to me is that you're also required to show the pieces, like at least 35, minimum 35 pieces twice a year. And so obviously this is like expensive.
High barrier to entry.
Like
very high barrier.
Very, very, very expensive. And, you know, Le Chambre Syndicale like actually manages the list of haute couture designers and, you know, or houses, I should say. And so, you know, folks don't make it every year. Even like the big like fashion houses, like they don't make it every year because, you know, of these really high stipulations when it comes to be saying like, you know, that it's a haute couture house. So that was super interesting to me. But also, you know, it just made me think like about like how high the barrier of entry is in the fashion world in general. Like to be seen as the elite, the best. You know, all of these rules are in place.
And the big houses are even struggling, and they have money back in something crazy. So imagine, you know, your indie designer trying to match that. You know, it's not possible, because you got to think about it too. A lot of times you're doing ready to wear on top of that haute couture collection, because your ready wear is really going to fund your business. Like you can't just do a haute couture season and think you're going to survive through the year. No, that ready wear is going to actually fuel and fund the business. So you have to do it both, on top of dealing with all the regulations from Shum. We're gonna call them the Shum. But yeah, just imagine all that. So yeah, that's a little bit about, you know, haute couture, its regulations. So in 1945, they actually started requiring designers to do seasonal collections. So like she said, twice a year. So high barrier to entry, as we said. So going a little bit further, in 1958, Milan Fashion Week was established in 1958, and it was established by the National Chamber of Italian Fashion. I'm not even going to try to say the Italian version, because I don't even know what Italian sounds like. At least I've heard like French, like real, like pretty good. But Italian, no. I'm not even going to try to butcher this joint. But yeah, 1958, Milan Fashion Week was established. And it's interesting because, Paris, fashion started there, but it's like we in America, it kind of set the trend for the week. So it's like, it started with the U.S. establishing Press Week. Now, in the 1958 Milan Fashion Week, and then in 1973, we have Paris Fashion Week for the first time. So that first Paris Fashion Week was actually like it was pretty legendary actually. So the first Paris Fashion Week took place at the Versailles Palace, and it was actually called the Battle of Versailles, which is funny because I remembered from high school world history that the Treaty of Versailles is what actually ended World War One. So I was like, yo, Versailles sounds like very familiar.
Hey, I have a question though before you go on. Okay. Like, why do you think it is that Paris Fashion Week was established after Milan Fashion Week and after American Fashion Week?
I think they were kind of just like late to the boat, or maybe they felt like, because we kind of started it, we don't need to actually establish our own week. Maybe. I'm not sure, because you got to think about it. Milan Fashion Week, 1958. Press Week was in 43. So they're establishing Paris Fashion Week almost 30 years later. Or maybe, you know what I think? Maybe, and I didn't research this part, but maybe that's when they started to do more ready wear in Paris. Because, Paris was really a lot of haute couture, not a lot of ready wear. And maybe they started shifting to more ready wear around that time, so it makes sense. I feel like that makes sense to me, like ready to wear. Like I could see some very snooty folks being like, oh no, they're trying to do their own thing, and we're not into that because we do haute couture and they do ready to wear. Like I could totally see that being the case. And also the fact that yes, brands in American brands specifically, couldn't really call their work haute couture. They couldn't unless they had an atelier in Paris. Right. So you can already see the layers of classism and bourgeois and Marie Antoinette off with their head bullshit happening exactly. And then it's also this press week is bringing a bunch of people together. And you remember how it started with Charles. High-end clients, very small. Right. Press Week is bringing in a bunch of people, bunch of buyers. So it's losing a little bit of that exclusivity. So maybe that's the reason why it took them a little bit to catch on. But yeah. So the reason why they called it the Battle of Versailles is because it was 4 American designers competing against 4 French designers. Sorry, 5. So the 5 French designers were Yves Saint Laurent, Hubert de Givenchy, Pierre Cardin, Emmanuel Ungaro, and Marc Bohan of Christian Dior. Those were the French designers. And then the 5 American designers were Oscar de la Renta, Bill Blass, and Klein Halston, and Stephen Burrows. So that is actually something very interesting. I suggest you guys look into that more, the Battle of Versailles, because that's epic. They came 30 years later, but Paris Fashion Week came out with a bang. They brought the best of the best and was like, we gonna compete. It's like, you bring your 5, I'm gonna bring my 5. Let's go to the park. Let's run.
If you want to see a really good reenactment of it, watch the Halston the live docuseries on Netflix. They do a really good job of just showing, of course it's from the viewpoint of Halston, but showing what that moment was like. I really enjoyed it.
I need to catch it. I'm going to catch it.
Halston was an interesting American designer. Yeah. Very interesting. I don't know if it was my style, but
Okay. And then after that, the latest to the party was the Brits. London Fashion Week comes in 1984, established by the British Fashion Council. So I read online that, you know, like London Fashion Week, it took some time to actually like catch like attention. I guess just because it was the last one and everybody had already been established. Because you have to just think about the timeline. This is 1984. Paris Fashion Week has already been out 11 years. Milan Fashion Week, almost 30 years. And then the New York Fashion Week has been out 40 plus years. So they're very late to the party. So I heard that, I heard, like somebody told me. I looked up online and it was like, it kind of took some time for it to catch some steam. And I heard that one thing that helped it catch steam was Naomi Campbell walking topless for LFW in 1993. That was the first thing that kind of brought
Naomi.
like attention. So it's just funny, man. Just black women are just always helping you guys out so much. They just do.
We are.
They just do so much. Like it's like it's always like something there. Like black women, they just have this like this creative like magic like energy. Like you should definitely, if you're smart, you should surround yourself with black women in whatever you're doing because they are very valuable. So
especially Naomi Campbell.
Yes, Naomi.
Congrats on the baby.
Congrats. Yes. So yeah, Naomi Campbell. They needed her to spice that up a little bit. And then 1993, they finally moved. They moved Fashion Week to actually one location in that year. So before, even though Press Week was all 1 week, it'll be in like different places. Like I think they put it in one building that year. So that was kind of interesting. So another thing about the timeline of stuff, you have to remember, like, you know, before this digital era, everything was the glossy magazines. Like, you know, a lot of magazines, they might drop once a month. They might drop quarterly. So that's the reason why the showings were so spread out. You know, they showed fall, you know, almost 6 months prior to actually dropping because, like we said, it gave the buyers time to actually decide what they want to stock. It also gave the magazines time to get these shots and edits because if you're a magazine that drops every quarter, you're only doing 4 issues a year. So they have to give the magazines enough time to actually get the photos, write the stories and things like that because the magazines were great press for them. So that's another thing to also actually consider.
Which makes a lot of sense when you think about like how much control the magazine industry at the because I feel like it's changing a little bit. Like
yes,
how much control they have over like the fashion narrative. Like Miss Anna over here, you know, like she.
Anna stepped down. Okay, sorry. Continue. I'm sorry.
I have a love-hate relationship with Anna Wintour.
She should step down.
She's the GOAT. Like she's the GOAT. What she did for Condé Nast, like it's groundbreaking. But
it's time.
I don't really believe in
it's time
the dynasty. But like you know, they like there's Edinful. Like I mean, I just feel like the world is being open. I'm sorry, I meant Oswald Boateng. The world is being open to incorporate and like make space for more diverse leaders.
Yeah, it's just like she kind of reminds me of one of them, and I'm gonna keep relating back to sports because that's something I know. She kind of reminds me of one of them college coaches that been there like 40 plus years. Like after a while, like you got to step down. Like Roy Williams eventually he stepped down. Like what's his name from Duke Krzyzewski? Like he's soon gonna step down. Jim Boeheim, he's soon gonna step down. Like you can't be at the top. Like you can't be lead forever because they need to infuse new blood and new ideas, and you are going to be. You're not going to be. There's no way you're going to be open to everything, and she might just not be seeing some stuff. So I think. I think she gotta step down. Like you know, at least from Vogue, like step down. Let some new blood get in there, and kind of give it some new life, and let's see where it goes. Like let's see where it goes. Okay. So now that we talked a little bit about history, where Fashion Week started, and where it's come, Indian is going to talk to us a little bit about a little. Black haute couture.
So this was, let me just say, very eye-opening and very interesting. We know about the erasure of Black people when it comes to inventions, when it comes to pretty much everything.
Basically.
Food, everything. And of course, it's the same when it comes to the fashion industry. So like we know like the most recent stories, but I want to take us like, let's take us back to the 1940s and bring ourselves back to current day fashion industry. So we did a lot of research and we tried to figure out who paved the way for where we are now. One of the first names that popped up was Anne Lowe. And so Anne Lowe basically was a dressmaker. And in its purest sense, where back in the day, people made their clothes. Like that was, we didn't have clothes that came to us from like China or Indonesia, made in other places. They were made here in the United States. And so obviously during that time, a lot of Black women were in industries like that. So, they were maids, they were cooks, a lot of work with your hands. And so we also made clothes too. And so Anne Lowe's story is very interesting because she's one of those folks who there's not a lot out there about her because her story was erased. And what for me really stuck out is like the clothes that she made were essentially couture clothes. They were made by hand and they were worn by the bourgeoisie, high class folks. So she actually is most well known for making Jackie Kennedy's wedding dress. Like, can you imagine? She made Jackie Kennedy's wedding dress.
That's fire.
That
is fire.
So that's what she's kind of known for, or I should say,
not known
for, because they'd be like, who made your dress? Oh, some colored woman. Like, what? Yeah. And so, she really for me, I feel like she was the first person in couture. It's just that, I think it was a double whammy. She was Black and a woman. No house is going to say, oh, we want you to make clothes for us. Like, it's But so she was the first. And then the second was, they were like around two people at the same time. But Hylan Booker, and probably the most well-known was Jaxon. So Hylan Booker, I thought he is really interesting because he was the head designer in 1968 for the house of Charles Frederick Worth, which remember we were talking about him earlier. He's kind of like the godfather of couture, haute couture, basically. Haute couture.
He also made like modeling like a professional career. Like they kind of credit him for that. Like before that, modeling professionally wasn't really like a thing, but through doing those shows for his high-end clients, he kind of made that a job position. So
right, because he was like, I need you to wear these clothes, so my clients will. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So Hylan Booker. So people don't really speak about him a lot, but like imagine that he's the head designer during this time period. And then Jaxon, who was the first Black American courtier. I can never say this word right.
Couturier.
Yes.
Hey,
in the Paris Maisons. In the Paris Maisons. The house, the Maison. Yeah, Maison just means house, like in French.
Yeah, that's why I was Mason Martin Margiela, House of Margiela.
Yes. And so he first, I think he was most well known for doing couture collections, and he was the head designer of John Louis Scherer, and basically he's been erased from the books. Not only was he erased from the books, but I think that fashion house in general, it shut down. So people don't talk about him.
And nobody's gonna rush to tell the story of a Black person. They barely do it now. So
right.
Imagine back in 1800s, 1900s?
In the 1960s.
Yeah, 1960s.
Yeah.
They're not gonna rush to tell his story.
Yeah. And subsequently, he worked for Yves Saint Laurent, Christian Dior. So these are major fashion houses that he created couture work for. So this is why isn't this a household name? It's wild to me that we don't know about these folks in the fashion industry.
That's why we here. We trying to democratize it.
Yes.
That's
And
why
so
we're here.
I think one thing that's really important to note is that like we still can't say that these folks who did designs and were head designers for these major fashion houses showed a haute couture show. You still can't say it because remember the definition of haute couture. So you still can't say it. It's very interesting, like the language. Like
it kind of just reminds me. And I'm sorry, I keep referencing back to sports, but like they had like the NBA and the ABA at one time. It's like we had to kind of like, and then they eventually like merged. But it's like we had to make our own thing, and it was always counted as lesser. Like the MLB and the Negro leagues, like it was always counted as lesser. And that just like screams that like he was doing haute couture, but because you made this strict little guideline and he didn't do this one quality thing, now you're completely disqualified. Like those clothes were haute couture. Like
And I mean, if you and it gets crazy when you talk about like this next icon, which is Patrick Kelly, who was doing this work in the 80s, because for him, so they gave him the distinction of the chambre syndical, but du pret-a-porter des French man. Basically, the loose translation is that he was doing, like, for the chambre syndicale, he was doing ready to wear. He was a ready to wear, like, designer. That was, like, his distinction that was given to him. And so because he had the distinction as a ready to wear designer, he also, you couldn't say that, like, he developed haute couture pieces. But in reality, like, he was on the side creating his own haute couture pieces like that. Like he was doing it. It just was like off the books. Like it was like, technically I've read that it was illegal because of the association with like Chambre Syndicale and the government. So it was like illegal, which I think is very interesting. So he never officially showed couture because of like all these rules. So the interesting thing is that he did show a 65 piece couture collection. 65
custom pieces.
We just need at least 35 and he's showing 65. Okay. In addition to that, he sold and created and sold pieces outside of like the chamber. Like, so that was the unofficial work that he was doing. And those were the pieces that were like really the haute couture pieces.
65.
And he would sell them like outside of the Fashion Week calendar. So that was like the reason why they would never like call him like the first black designer, black American designer.
Show twice a week.
Yeah. To show at haute couture Fashion Week.
I can't get over 65 pieces. You got to remember, these are handmade pieces. 65 of these bad boys, and he's doing.
Can you imagine? I can't.
Yeah.
So rewind to modern day, and the designer, the first designer who can say that they have shown at Paris Haute Couture Week is our favorite,
our boy. Kirby.
The man, the icon, the legend. Kirby John Raymond.
Yes. Shout out to you.
You know what's like I think is really funny is like or interesting. I don't know if it like I'm sure it doesn't mean anything, but Kirby's Haitian, right?
Yes.
So I don't know, it's just like interesting. Like it's like full circle. Like Haiti, they speak French in Haiti.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they were colonized by France.
They were also robbed by France, but that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. I just, it's that like link to me is, I don't know, like it just popped into my head. Like I wasn't even thinking about that before, but like, so.
And I love that he took
raped and pillaged my country. And now you're finally allowing me to be part of Paris Haute Couture Fashion Week.
And I like that he took that opportunity to highlight blackness in the full way possible, shouting out all those black inventions. If you haven't seen Kirby's Couture show, please go to the YouTube page. I think it's on the Pyer Moss YouTube page, and go look at it. It's very dope. Like he just. Man, he definitely did it right. Opened the door, set the tone. Like it was a really great show.
And it's full circle once again because he's showcasing these Black inventors that are forgotten, that are like not in the history books. So it's full circle. It's like we weren't recognized as designers who did amazing work and who paved the way and who are very influential in couture fashion. We weren't recognized. And now he shows at Haute Couture Paris Fashion Week. and it's like everything about his show is Black. Every single, the music, the models, the clothing, the statement the clothing is trying to make, the nod to Black inventors, like everything is Black. So it just was what he did was monumental.
He was trying to, it was like he went out of his way to shine the light on Blackness when they went out of their way to erase it, basically.
Yes.
Because he could have just showed regular pieces, but he said no. Y'all gonna get this history today, So yeah, that's why I definitely loved it. He kept it Black, shown it at Madam C.J. Walker's house. The artist that performing was from Brooklyn, so he kept it home to where he grew up in New York. So it was just like, yeah, it was really good. I'm glad it went through too, because that first day of the rain, it rained. They had to redo it the next day, but got it right. Mother Nature tried, but weapons may form.
Yeah, so I mean, like all of that history was just so, I don't know, eye-opening for me. And I definitely want to shout out. There's a Black fashion historian. Her name is Rachel Fenderson. And so she, like, I'm like very interested to get her on the pod. Like, I feel like that would be a dream come true. Yes. Because she really like broke down this history of Black fashion designers in the couture space, and did a phenomenal job with it. And I just feel like there's like, we need more people like her to be featured, in WWD, in Vogue, in Harper's Bazaar, and like tell this more holistic story of fashion that isn't being told. Like it needs to be, it's important. Like I hope that FIT and Parsons, all these places that are teaching, the next generation about fashion, like I hope there are courses like this. I don't know. Would love to hear drop some comments in the pod and let us know, because I'm very curious.
I mean, they don't even teach Black history in regular elementary school, so my gut tells me not doing it in fashion courses, even though they should. But that would be great. Fashion brands, those magazines listening, this is your opportunity to, shine a light on Black history in fashion. I mean, a lot of you guys had your Black Square solidarities last year. So yeah, let's see some action behind those Black Squares. Hashtag reparations. But yes.
So I wanted to close us out by sharing this quote from Rachel and paying homage to her and the work that she has done and continues to do.
Yes.
So she gave this really awesome quote to WWD. Before there was Kirby John Raymond for Pyer Moss in 2021, Robin Rihanna Fenty for Fenty in 2019, Virgil Abloh, may he rest in peace, for Louis Vuitton in 2018, Olivier Rousteing for Balmain in 2011, Oswald Boateng for Givenchy in 2003, Chambray Syndical du, I'm going to try to get it right, y'all, Pret-a-Porter des Courtiers et du Créateur de Mode, member Patrick Kelly in 1988. There was Jay Jaxon for John Louis Scherer in 1969. They didn't all design couture, but they all made space. And what I mean by making space is that they broke down barriers. They opened doors. They left those open for more to follow. They made it easier for us to be there, and not easier in terms of technique and skill set, easier in terms of our presence. And for us to be able to have an experience that's more suitable for intellectual output and what we can develop versus our skin color. Like Like drop the mic on that one.
Amen to that.
Like it just paved the way.
Mm-hmm.
Like showed us that it was possible.
Mm-hmm. And just know, when being born Black, there's some things that you just have to do, and when you open a door, you can't just walk through it. You have to leave it open so that others can walk through it. So we appreciate those who did that for us, and continue to do that in fashion. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe, share on the YouTube page, on Spotify, Google Playlists, Apple Music. I said Apple Music, Apple Podcasts. Please follow our Instagram page at Got This in Black. Like the post, interact with us. We ask questions on the story. If you guys want to send in your fits, we can have people who follow it judge your fits as well too. Just continue to rock with us. We appreciate you. Shout out to our day one listeners. Shout out to our new listeners, however you got here, and shout out to the person that hipped you to it. And Dima Chukwuwike, this has Got This in Black. Peace.